44 games played and 15 goals conceded is crazy stuff. I wonder if Scott Parker's had a change in a style, maybe a tactical approach, because we've seen him struggle in the Premier League. So I wonder if he's taking a bit more of a defensive. Hello and welcome back to the Counter Sports Football Podcast. I'm your host, Darren Timson, joined today by Liam and Kevin. And Liam, I say this in so many different podcasts, but this might actually be the one you've been looking forward to all season long. Today, we're going to go through the EFL. We're going to do this over two different parts. First being the Championship, and then we'll go into the Sky Bet League One and League Two. But first, guys, how you doing?
Good, excited, ready to go. All of
This
the above.
This is like me the morning we recorded our Masters podcast, the one where Rory won, except I think Liam might actually be more excited. Like, just look at him.
It's been smiling ever since we decided to do this, I think. So it's just to run you through the Championship table at the minute. Leeds and Burnley secured their promotion at the weekend. They're both on 94 points. The playoffs are interesting, though, because it can go pretty much from down to 11th, can really all get promoted. Sheffield United have secured theirs. Sunderland have secured theirs. That's from 5th till 11th, really. So that's Bristol, Coventry, Middlesbrough, Millwall, Blackburn, West Brom and Swansea. West Brom and Swansea are a little bit away, though. Coventry are on 66 and West Brom and Swansea both on 60. So the likelihood of them getting promoted and into the playoffs is pretty unlikely, but they are still within a chance. Looking further down then, relegation can really go from 16th to 24th, to be honest, as Portsmouth are on 52 points, Plymouth on 43. Grice, I guess I'll just ask you, where do you want to start, really? I mean, Leeds, Burnley, the playoffs, relegation, where do you want to start?
I was going to say, yeah, well, we can start off with the thing that I think you two can talk the most about. And it's obviously Leeds and Burnley have been confirmed to go up. Playoffs is still yet to be decided. But just from them two, obviously they've had brilliant Championship seasons. Them and Sheffield United up until the last game week were really in a league of their own, if you like, in terms of that automatic promotion race. Do you think, say those three were to go up, say it was Leeds, Burnley and Sheffield United, they'll fare as poorly as the promoted sides did this season and last, or is it finally going to be the case where one of them can stay in the league?
It's weird looking at the three of them. I think Burnley might have the best chance of staying up, just because of how Scott Parker plays football. I know he got relegated with Fulham, wasn't it, back in the day, and obviously got sacked by Bournemouth. But I feel like, I mean, they've conceded 15 goals in 44 games.
Yeah.
And I know that's this is dependent on if they can keep hold of James Trafford. I feel like they will, just because, you know, they're in the Premier League now, so he might feel as if, let's give it one more season in the Premier League, show them what I can do. So I feel like with the way they play, you know, we've seen a lot in the last few seasons, teams come up and try replicate a sort of open, expansive style that got them promoted, and it doesn't really work out for them because of the golfing quality. Whereas I feel as though if you're horrible to play against, like Burnley are, you've a better chance of getting a few results that you may not have gotten.
Yeah.
So look, and I suppose it's too early to say, because those two and whoever comes up from the playoffs will obviously invest, and obviously Leeds have good backing behind them as well, and they've I like Farke as a manager. They've some really good players in there, but they will, and they're such a big club as well. I feel like Leeds can attract a certain type of player, that maybe the others can't because of who they are. So they have a chance, but I would say Burnley are the most likely.
Yeah, I agree with a lot of what Kevin said there. What I do want to say is I don't want Sheffield United coming back up. I can't be bothered with clubs going down and then coming back up in the next 2 years, like Leeds, Burnley, and Sheffield United. Two of Leeds and Burnley was fine. Let's not have all three of them. Let's have someone a little bit different. I was listening the podcast I listened to a couple of weeks ago said if you're a bit of a yo-yo club, then you shouldn't be allowed back into the Premier League for the next 5 years, and I actually think I agree with that. But yeah, Burnley's interesting. 44 games played and 15 goals conceded is ridiculous. Crazy stuff. I wonder if Scott Parker's had a change in a style, maybe a tactical approach, because we've seen him struggle in the Premier League. So I wonder if he's taking a bit more of a defensive approach, like Kevin was saying there. You know, these attacking clubs come up to the Premier League and then they just kind of get found out a little bit, not really adapting to the league that they're in. But then again, Scott Parker is their manager and he does not have a good track record in the Premier League. So I think Burnley might have the best chance of staying up. But will Scott Parker be there by May? I don't know. Leeds, yeah, I think I like Leeds. I like them being in the Premier League. They're one of those clubs that probably shouldn't be in the Championship, to be fair.
Definitely.
They are a huge club and they've got a lot of history, but at the same time, they're going to need to show a little bit more in the Premier League if they're coming back up again. I think, I just don't really like clubs basing themselves as being yo-yo clubs. That's not really a model I like, and I do really like seeing Norwich in 14th, away from the playoffs. But like Kevin said, they probably do have the best chance of attracting players. What we were just trying to figure out before we stopped recording, though, is how much money these clubs are going to get to spend. And Leeds, do they have many sellable assets maybe that they could give back to the Championship and then reinvest there? Because they sold like Somerville last year, which I thought was a good move from them, but a terrible buy from West Ham.
Oh, horrible. Yeah.
I think if he needed another year in the Championship, and he might have been, maybe a £40 million player if they came up this year. So that's where it's interesting for me. But looking at the playoffs, I think, we were talking about this yesterday, Liam, that I kind of want Sunderland back in the Premier League because that rivalry between them and Newcastle, and everything Sunderland's kind of gone through. It'd be nice to see them back in the Premier League. But then again, you kind of took me around to Bristol, and I've been thinking about it a lot more, and they've not been up there for a long time, so that would be quite nice. Coventry, again, sorry, they just can't come up because of Frank Lampard. That's just not going to happen. And then Middlesbrough with Michael Carrick as their manager, they've been good, so it'll be interesting to see if they can pip Coventry back in there. But yeah, it's very exciting last two games in the Championship, definitely.
That's what makes it one of the best leagues in the world, if not the best league in the world. But yeah, the playoffs is where everybody's attention probably is. And Sheffield, like Darren said, Sheffield United, Sunderland have already confirmed their places, and then it's up to Bristol City, Coventry City, Borough, Millwall, Blackburn. I'm gonna discount West Brom and Swansea because I think they're just a little bit too far back at this point. Although to be fair, Swansea are on a 5-match winning run and do have Millwall next, so that's a playoff 6-pointer if you like, a bit of reverse of a relegation one. But yeah, I find it hard to disagree with anything you've both just said. I'd love to see Leeds back in the Prem. I think that is where a club of their size belongs. I do share some of Darren's views that it is a bit annoying seeing the same clubs go up and down again, but if it means Leeds come back up, then so be it. Sheffield United have really had a poor end to the season, so it would be quite funny to see them not win the playoffs now. But maybe that's a bit of bias coming out, as I do sort of want to see Bristol City in the Premier League. I think that would just be fun, something a little bit different. They've been constantly 12th place for what feels like 15 years now.
The Crystal
so them,
Palace of the Championship.
Yeah, exactly. So for them to really sort of have a breakout season, you know, their manager Liam Manning is a good young up and coming manager who's really got the most out of this Bristol City squad, because really on paper they're not a playoff side, but to be fair to me, he's done a brilliant job. Just them being in with a shout with 2 games left is, I'm not gonna say a miracle, but it's pretty good going.
I will not have Jason Knight disrespect on this podcast.
I knew you were gonna, because you've got loads of Irish players.
How dare you,
Are you gonna shout at me for slagging off Max O'Leary as well, or is he?
No, my main 2 concerns on that team are Jason Knight and Sinclair Armstrong when he gets off the bench. I did read a mad stat about Jason Knight. Sorry, I don't want to go off on a tangent. He's like the third most he's the third most experienced player in Europe under 23 or something like something ridiculous like that. Wow. Here we go. Bristol City's Jason Knight has been ranked as the third most experienced player born in 2001 in world football. Only 2 players have made more than his 303 appearances at his age. And it's Rodrigo at Real Madrid and Takefusa Kubo at Real Sociedad. So it is
good company
absolutely insane. He's ahead. The 4th is Bukayo Saka. So yes, I kind of agree. Like I'd like to see Bristol City just mainly because of Jason Knight, because he's also their captain. But Sunderland as well. Here's a question: how's Enzo Lefebvre getting on, Liam?
I think a lot more was expected of Sunderland than maybe they've produced. I mean, guaranteed playoff spot with 2 games to go is not a bad thing. I'm not saying that, but being 10 points off 3rd, and then you know, another 8 points off the automatics was maybe a little bit further away than a few Sunderland fans thought they would be, but pretty solid season. You know, like I said, you can't really complain with being in a guaranteed home automatic tie for the 2nd leg, which I think is what sort of everybody wants, really. Wilson Isidore's had a pretty good season. He's probably been their best player, 12 goals, 14 assists. So if they don't go up, you know, there's that traditional move every single year from the Championship where the guy who got over 20 goal involvements gets that move to a lower end Premier League side like a Crystal Palace. I think that's Wilson Isidore this summer. If Sunderland don't go up, they've obviously got Bellingham, but enough's been said about him. I'm kind of getting bored of talking about Joe Bellingham.
How good? There. No, but I know you're bored. How good is he? How good is he?
Very good.
Take away the name.
He'll never be Jude, unfortunately, as much as I think he wants to be. But he's a very good player. I think he'll be a solid Premier League player once he's fully developed. Whether that's for Sunderland or whether that's for another team, I'm not too sure. But I think we should talk about something a bit more negative than the playoffs. I think we should talk about the relegation places. And Darren, this name is going to bring up some PTSD for you, but Plymouth are in last. The people who knocked out Liverpool of the FA Cup. Sorry, I had to get that one in there. And then you've got Cardiff and Luton, who have shocked many by being awful in their season back in the Championship. They look set to go back to back, which is something we'll get onto later. Back to back in terms of relegations. It is very tight down there. I think was it 5 points separate 20th to 24th? 3 teams go down, so it's still all to play for. And I'm not just saying this to wind you up slightly, Darren, but I would love to see Plymouth
Mhm.
have a real good go and get out of the relegation scrap purely because of how far away they were after their horror appointment of Wayne Rooney earlier in the season. Muslich has come in and done a brilliant job with pretty limited resources at Plymouth. Cardiff would also be quite funny to go down, but also quite sad because their situation off the pitch is dire. The owners are slowly bleeding everything out of that club, and it's horrible to see. And I do think a relegation could really sort of make their problems even worse with the lower finances in League One. So I do worry a little bit for Cardiff off the pitch if they were to go down. And you know, it's just so tight down there. I don't really know what to talk about. Hull and Derby play each other next. That's the definition of a relegation 6-pointer. And they are just outside of the relegation zone in 20th and 21st. But again, a link back to the Premier League, so I can bring you to it. I know Luton weren't great in the Premier League this season, and we have seen it a few times now with teams that come down. But as people who don't necessarily watch the Championship all that often, were you surprised when you kept looking at the table and seeing Luton that far down? Or is that just quite common now in terms of teams who sort of fall pretty heavily out of the Premier League and then plummet?
Well, I was just before you asked that question, I was going to ask, what the hell has happened? So yes, I was surprised. I think initially you're like, okay, slow start, whatever, readjusting,
Yeah.
and then they sacked Rob Edwards, and it was like, okay, like on one hand I get it, okay, if you sort of taking them as far as you can, and there's a natural end to things, and just it does seem strange. What are they just like? Because it's not that different of a squad, is it? I mean,
Well, this is the
It's
funny
not,
thing with
yeah.
Luton, though, isn't it? Because the whole talk when they came up to the Premier League was that they're
Yeah.
building a squad
a squad
to go back
come
down
and
then to get
like
promoted
Ipswich.
again.
Like the talk
Yeah.
is about Ipswich this season, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And then to see them down and pretty almost bang on to get relegated is insane.
They did beat Derby the other day, though, on Friday, was it?
Yeah.
Yeah, and that was a huge win.
Huge win.
And they've won their last 2, so I mean, it would be insane. It would be absolutely insane. And it's not as if like they're going into like administration or something, because
No.
that's how you usually see this sort of back-to-back relegation happen. If like someone gets like a points deduction or or whatever, it's very, very strange. I think I'm a bit more worried. Not more worried. I think Hull might go down. I just feel like I don't know why. Sometimes my algorithm on Twitter just like puts me in the
I'm
whole
exactly
city's
the same.
support, and they
Yeah.
all seem to absolutely hate the team and the owners. And they won on Monday, which is obviously good. But if they lose against Derby, I mean, and say Luton win or whatever, or pick up a point going into the last day, I don't know. I mean, this is a team that were challenging for the playoffs under Liam Senior last year, and and like if you look at Liam Senior now, he's
doing brilliant with Strasbourg, isn't he? Yeah.
Yeah, he's pushing Strasbourg for a Champions League. I don't know.
It almost feels like karma with Hull. I think
Why?
sacking Rosinha was a bit of a
yeah.
war crime, and then they've really gone down, and Strasbourg have really benefited from it. You mentioned Hull's next fixtures; they have Derby, like I said, at home, and then on the final day they have Pompey away, which is another team sort of down there. But I think Pompey is safe now. Musinho, not Mourinho, Musinho, has done a brilliant job at Fratton Park, so really impressed.
Yeah, I was going to say that's a classic hashtag tough place to go. is Fratton Park. I do another one I'm sort of wondering about. They're not fully out of it, but they're 3 points clear. Oxford United have done really well to,
Yes.
be in this position, right? After coming up last year.
Yeah, you don't often really see. I mean, maybe next season when Birmingham come up, they'll do a lot better. But
And Wrexham.
No, I'm not speaking on that yet. That's for part 2.
We're not on that
yet. Oxford's sort of made the mad decision to get rid of their manager quite early in the season, who'd got them up from League One, which a lot of people at the time were like, no, that's not how you survive in the Championship. You keep your manager and plug away, unless you're Plymouth and you hire Wayne Rooney, then get rid immediately. But they got Gary Rowett in, and to be fair to him, he's done a brilliant job. He's really steered them away from what could have been a pretty convincing relegation season. I think if they'd have stead the course, they would be in a much worse position now. They are only 3 points outside, but they do have a better goal difference than the teams in the relegation zone. And I'm going to add another caveat: they do have Sunderland next, which is not an easy game by any means, but plucky Oxford, they should be okay come the end of the season. They do have Swansea away on the final day, so if Swansea don't have anything to play for, I think they could rock up there and maybe get 3 points and sort of solidify themselves, which I think was the expectation coming into the season. So yeah, Oxford have done brilliantly.
That'd be great for League One, though, wouldn't it? Sorry, Liam, to cut you off there, but it'd be Portsmouth, Oxford, and Derby all potentially staying up this season, which would be pretty huge, actually, to be fair. And it's not really talked about that much, but if, like you say, if Derby beat Hull, then they probably secure safety for themselves there, don't they? And then Oxford really only need a point, I suppose, to really solidify themselves. And it would be great for League One to show that there is a bit more of it's still strengthening, I guess.
Yeah, there's not much of a gap in quality.
There's not much of a disparity anymore.
To the Premier League. There's a big sort of gap there.
Clubs coming in, and like you said, next year is going to be interesting with Birmingham because of the amount of money that they have. So you wouldn't expect them to be in the relegation zone. But I do want to just add, you think I like Plymouth? I quite like Plymouth.
Sure. Just because they beat Liverpool, gritted teeth.
I have noticed. I know we're under relegation, but we have skated swiftly past Super Frankie Lampard. And is that intentional?
I was getting to Super Frankie Lampard.
Is that intentional?
That was my final big point.
Well, I was gonna say as well. I have been, let's call it, skeptical over his managerial abilities over the past few years.
Fair.
I don't think he's very good, but I mean, he's better than Wayne Rooney. You gotta give him that.
Yeah, but is that hard? Is that a hard bar to reach?
Is that the
he can finally put the Lampard Gerrard debates to bed as well.
Yeah.
No, but like, we're jumping back up here, but Liam, like they've lost 3 of their last 6, but they're still in the playoff spots. What's going on?
I feel like Chris Kamara.
I don't know.
Coventry sacked Mark Robbins.
Yes.
Earlier in the season, which seems not sacrilegious was the word I used.
Not a war crime.
It's not that
on level with Rosenier. No.
I think I used that on a podcast earlier in the year because of what that man has done for Coventry. He's brought them up back through the divisions and got them in a really good place. So close a couple of years ago to going up, and then their team sort of just got picked apart. And you thought, well, that's them for another 10 years or so now, of being able to challenge, of going up. They looked pretty dead on to be in that bottom relegation battle. At the start of the season, they sacked Robbins and brought in Frank Lampard. And I'm not saying you should put the lottery numbers on from what I'm about to tell you, but when they hired Lampard, I was skeptical, I'll admit, but thought this won't be as bad as an appointment as people think it will be, because as much as I agree with Darren, Lampard he's not a terrific manager. I don't think he's a Premier League level manager. He knows how to build a squad for the Championship. We saw it with Derby. Just missing
But that
out.
was just Chelsea loanees, though, to be honest, Liam.
Well, you say that, but you can only field what's in front of you, and he got the best out of some not really promotion-worthy players in that Derby side, and he's done the same with Coventry. You look at their squad.
Do you think it's as simple as this is his level, and he's just not good enough for the this is his level?
I think that's what it is. I think he's a very good Championship manager. I think he knows how to get the best out of the players in this division. His style of play doesn't really translate to the Premier League because it's a lot more intense and you don't have as much time on the ball to sort of do what you want with it. And Lampard, yeah, he just knows how to get the best out of players at this level. You look at the Coventry side, I don't think there's really many players you'd call Premier League quality. What that will have to change if they do go up through the playoffs. Maybe Van Ewijk, the right back, is the only one I'd really comfortably say would get into maybe a lower end Premier League side. But yeah, I do think Lampard's done a brilliant job at Coventry, and all the plaudits to him. I just hope he can hang on to that last playoff spot now, and maybe the Sky Blues will go up this time.
I suppose sorry, Dan, but the only thing is, we think that Super Frank is a good Championship manager. Whether Super Frank thinks that this is his level is a different kettle of fish altogether.
Well, I mean, I suppose you've got to respect from his point of view that I don't know, I don't want to say he failed in the Premier League, but like he had a tough time in the Premier League. But like the fact that he was able to kind of go, I'm not going to get another Premier League job. I'm going to go back down to the Championship and kind of start again. I think that does have to be respected a lot. And I agree with what Grice has said there. Maybe not necessarily just Championship level is his level, but I do think he performs better when he's got average players that he just gets the best out of. Because we saw that at Chelsea when they had the transfer ban, and he was pretty good with them, actually. It was basically just young players he had. But
and
then
World Cup winner N'Golo Kante in the middle of the park. Let's not forget that.
Yeah, but he got the best out of Mason Mount, who was just coming through the team, and Tammy Abraham as well. And I think like Bryce has said it there. Although a lot of that Derby team, they didn't really own most of the players, but he did get a lot out of that team as well. And I think that maybe it is his sort of level where, average to good players, he just gets the best out of them. But when it actually comes to necessarily being high pressure players or high pressure level, I'm not sure that's where he really performs. But like I said, let's just get Blackburn.
I can imagine him being a good sort of motivator for particularly younger players who are up and coming, and and that's a skill that has to be admired. And maybe it's the sort of tactical acumen that you need in the Premier League that maybe he sort of falls short of. But again, I've made in this praise of Lampard, I've already made some slight digs, and that's going to end now because I say, you know what, good luck to him, and I hope they stay in the playoffs. That sounds sarcastic as well. It's not.
Yeah, I was going to say.
I just want to go back to what we were talking about earlier before Grice moved us on to the relegation. I just want to go back to Sunderland. Grice, do you think this is like a do or die moment for Sunderland? Because they've got quite a few young players, like Kevin mentioned it before with Job, and they've got Dan Neil obviously as well, and Enzo Lefebvre is going to go back to Roma. They've got that 17-year-old that's played quite a lot as well, Chris Rigg. Do you think that a lot of these players have given a lot to Sunderland over the past few years, and this is kind of their last chance with Sunderland to have these players because they probably think that they might deserve more? Do you think Sunderland need to make the Premier League this year to keep a lot of them?
Yeah, I think that could be the case. Sunderland have a lot of good young, more importantly to maybe Premier League signs, British talent. So the registration rules don't get skewed from buying overseas stars, and that's what we've seen a lot more recently is the Premier League teams recruiting from within the EFL, bringing through domestic players, which has been nice to see. But yeah, Sunderland do have a lot of players that I could, if they don't go up, see getting picked off by those mid-table Premier League signs. Anthony Patterson in goal, I fully expect to play for England one day. He's a brilliant goalkeeper. On his day, you mentioned Chris Rigg. He's another brilliant talent that's come through that Sunderland academy. Job is the obvious one. To talk about Dan Neil, they. Well, I mean, I mentioned him before. Wilson Isidore, although not being British and not fitting to the point, is a brilliant player that if Sunderland don't go up, could get taken off them by even say maybe by a Leeds or a Burnley that have gone up because they know he can perform at championship level and he can sort of hopefully translate that play into the Premier League. So you could say it's do or die for Sunderland. Which is strange to say considering they're comfortably in the playoffs, guaranteed a home tie in the second leg. Everything seems in their favour, but they have lost.
But it's still a
their
loss
last
three,
three.
though, isn't it? The playoffs.
Yeah,
Like you
playoffs
can't go
is
into a
horrible.
season saying, let's go up through the playoffs.
Yeah, definitely. But you'd give them more of a chance than a Bristol, Coventry, Middlesbrough, Millwall, given they've definitely been the fourth best side in the league this season. But as Darren said, playoffs is a lottery, and I wouldn't wish it on my worst enemy.
So who do you think? Go on.
No, just last point before. How is Enzo Lefebvre not just tearing this league up? Because I know it didn't work out for him at Roma, but the whole reason he went to Sunderland was because Labrie was there, and he had him at Lorient, and he was really good for Rennes before. The reason he got to Roma was that. How is he not just the best player comfortably in this division?
Well, his performances have been good. They've been at a very decent level on average. Obviously, he has the odd game where he dips below the standard, which is natural with any player. So his performances have been good. His output has been well below average for what you'd expect from a player coming from a top Serie A side to the Championship. He's only got 1 goal and 1 assist in 13 games.
I don't think it's
season.
really fair to really judge him on goals, though. I mean, like when you look at his career, 8 with
No, I know,
but he didn't even get off the bench against Blackburn.
He's only started 9 out of the 13, and you'd expect a player of his quality to really just be sort of forced into the starting 11 wherever he can play. But I suppose on the flip side of that, you do have to give a little bit of credit to Régis Labrie, who, although definitely wanted him there and was, like Kevin said, was the big lure of him coming to Sunderland, has maybe seen that there are players more effective for a whole 90 minutes, and he's stuck with them. And to be fair, it served Sunderland quite well.
Do you think he's a player that might suit the Premier League a bit more than the Championship, maybe?
A little bit more freedom to do what he wants. He can sort of show his individual talent a little bit more, rather than just getting kicked and hacked and borderline punched in the Championship. So yeah, I think that could be a way he could sort of prove himself in England.
Yeah, or maybe he's just a French League One player and that's the end of that one. So should we go through who we think's going to make the playoffs then?
I was going to say, do you want to do the... It's not even way too early predictions, is it?
No, it's perfectly timed predictions.
We're actually on time this time. So yeah, we obviously Sheffield United and Sunderland are guaranteed. So if you want to do 5th and 6th, and then we could do relegation as well if we want to be a bit somber.
Yeah. Kevin, do you want to go first on that one?
Right.
Picked on vibes.
I don't want to go first.
Vibes only.
Vibes only.
I think Bristol City, 4 points with 2 games to go. I think Bristol City have maybe just done enough. Final spot. We haven't really touched on them. I'm looking at the form table. They've won 4 of their last 5. And it would be not hilarious. It would be great to see them in. Let's go for Millwall.
Yeah,
Let's go for Millwall.
Millwall.
Sheffield United versus Millwall. Sunderland versus Bristol City.
Darren.
Sunderland to go up.
Oh.
Sunderland to go up. Ooh.
Sunderland to go up.
Yeah, So who do Coventry have next again?
They've got no. They haven't.
Luton.
Yeah, they have got Luton next.
And Middlesbrough. Middlesbrough, last game of the season. That's interesting.
Coventry Middlesbrough last game is great.
That's
great. Yeah,
that is interesting. So I'm gonna go Middlesbrough to shock everyone, get into the playoffs, because we've not even spoken about Middlesbrough either, and the John Michael Carrick's done there, and the one player I know that they have in Hayden Hackney.
Finn Azaz.
He's been very good this season, to be fair.
So Sheffield to lose to Middlesbrough because of my own bias. Sunderland, Bristol. Probably, I'll probably go Sunderland just because of quality, and then, I'm going to go Sunderland to go up as well.
Oh, love it.
I have to be different now, don't I? I mean, I was going to be anyway. I'm saying that like I wasn't not going to pick Sunderland. I think Bristol City getting. I agree with what Kevin said. I think they get a win in their next game. I think they are confirmed. So, I mean, it is Leeds. But Leeds are probably
Leeds are
still in the pub. So
I say they don't care. We're still fighting for this title. He's got to go to Bristol and get something.
Leeds may fall apart once they've gone up. As the song goes.
As the song goes.
Who've they got in their game after that? They've got Preston last day of the season, which I think is a lot more of a winnable game if they're still in the playoff spot after the Leeds game. So I'll go Bristol City to finish 5th. And then, as much as I would love to see a Millwall Burnley Saturday 3:00 kickoff in the Premier League, I think that would thrill everybody.
God.
I do agree with Darren. I think Borough might just sneak in that 7th spot. They have Coventry last game of the season, and if both teams win their next fixtures, if Borough beat Coventry, they go ahead of them by goal difference, which would be good for Coventry.
Goal difference over them. But
the gap is quite significant unless Coventry can sort of put 6 past Luton. It doesn't really change that much. So I'll go Bristol City in 5th, Borough in 6th, and then I'll go. Why not? I'll go Bristol City to win the playoffs, because the playoffs is a lottery and anybody can beat anybody.
Sounds amazing. Leeds, Burnley, maybe Sunderland or Bristol to go up. You heard it here first. We'll leave it there for now then, guys, and we'll come back with the part 2. So please make sure to join us on that one, and we'll see you soon. Goodbye.